Welcome to the C Files, folks. Thanks for joining us. I'll tell you some of the programming and podcasts that I like, real quick. But if you haven't watched them, you should check them out. They'll be on Rumble, BitChute, YouTube. Some not on YouTube because they got kicked off of YouTube. But I think number one would be And We Know. And it's named after Romans 8:28. It says, and we know that all things work together for good to those who are called, who are chosen, right? Romans 8:28, right? And We Know is the name of the show. You can pick it up on Rumble, you can pick it up on BitChute, and I think there's podcasts too. I'd recommend watching it on Rumble. It's a very, very good show. Stu Peters podcast is good. You can catch him on Rumble and BitChute as well. I also recommend X22 is good. I don't listen to him as much as I used to, but he helps you understand some of the details of what's going on in the world. So it'd be X22 Report. My programming is more on how does Christianity fit within the world today. And I try to point out some things happening in the churches that need to be dealt with, need to be corrected. So that's a few of them. There's more. I'll mention some more as I do other videos. It's been a rainy, cloudy week here in North Carolina. So we have some things happening, and I just want to give my perspective on it. The taking of homes in New York. New York has a different law than North Carolina does, than Tennessee does, than Florida does. California, not sure how they would deal with that. But in New York, you can see the intent of the World Economic Forum Bilderberg Group plan. And that is, you will have nothing, you will own nothing, and be happy. So they're allowing squatters to go in and take homes. They've got laws in place that prevent homeowners from actually having control over their own property. This is an assault against private property rights, because the people who are making these laws and do this, they hate the concept of private property rights. They don't like it. They're Marxist in ideology, and they want to take away our right to private property. So one of the things they're doing is through these squatter laws. And these squatters are actually taking control of people's property, their homes in New York. And why aren't New Yorkers in outrage over this? Why aren't they storming City Hall? Why aren't they storming the police department and demanding that the police department and sheriff's department do not enforce unconstitutional laws and start enforcing trespassing laws? Private property is a biblical concept. God established the principle of being able to own private property all the way back in Deuteronomy and Leviticus in the Bible. And it's a biblical right, it's a God-given right, and it's a constitutional right. But as you can see, our government is no longer the government that we established at the foundation of this country. It has been fundamentally transformed. Now we have millions of people, if we believe the optics get put out by social media and by the news media, if it's not just a bunch of AI, but there are people who have been on the border and they have witnessed it. So this is why I believe it's actually happening. That people are pouring across the border in large numbers. And these are the same people that are coming in and taking away the property of citizens. It's being reported in social media that they're allowed to have guns without permits. Sounds like an invasion to me. How many of them are members of a foreign military? How many of them are insurgents? How many of them are terrorists? How many of them are here for the purpose of staging a coup against the people? Our federal government has already staged a coup against us. And as I study this stuff, as I learn more, I see the dots that are connected. I see how the central banks are connected to this corrupt government that we have, and how the income tax is connected to the world banks, and how the IRS is just a collection agency for the world banks, so that the world banks can use our government to carry out the 2030 agenda of the World Economic Forum, implemented through the UN. And part of that agenda is, as Klaus Schwab has openly stated, you will have nothing and be happy. So the squatter situation is the you will have nothing part, because they're going to try to take away all of our private property. And the next thing is to try to force us into 15-minute cities. We know that that's what Maui was about, was to burn those people out of their own property so they could produce a 15-minute city there. And when you see these fires popping up and destroying people's property, think 15-minute city. This stuff is planned, and it's intentional, and it's cynical, and it's evil. So, if you can kind of get the big picture there, what's going on, then you kind of help you understand why the world is so crazy right now. I said at the beginning of this year that 2024 was going to be the craziest year of our lifetime. And so far it has been. I knew that the globalists, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and the boys, as I call them, we're going to really turn up the heat for 2024. And they certainly have done that. And this is just the beginning. Now, Trump is way ahead in the polls, which indicates, if this was any normal election, everybody would know that he's going to win the election. But everybody's concerned about cheating, fraud, stealing of the election. Well, the only way we can defeat that cheating is to overwhelm them in early voting. We need to overwhelm them in early voting. the churches in Southern California started doing ballot harvesting because apparently it's legal in California. Because long before the churches were doing it, the Kill America crowd was doing it. And so the churches said, okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. They can do it, we can do it. And they started winning elections down in the San Diego area, Orange County, and probably Riverside, those areas. LA's hard to affect, but there are a lot of people leaving California. Anyway, if that could be duplicated in swing states all across the country, we could defeat the cheaters at their own game. Not by cheating, but by doing everything legal and up board, doing everything legal, but still out maneuvering them at their own game. So please go vote when it comes to November. Don't sit at home. If you sit at home, you're just waving a white flag. If you go vote, you can come back later and say, hey, you disenfranchised me in my vote, and you can throw that right in their face and start fighting them. Now, another concern is I believe Trump will win and will take the White House, but here's the problem. All of these military-age men that came across the border, these people coming across the border said, soon you will find out who I am, or who, that kind of smart aleck comment. They will rise up and create havoc in this country. And Antifa was child's play. It won't be, fist and homemade weapons, like little baseball bat type stuff. It'll be firearms. It'll be a shooting uprising that these illegals will be doing. Stand by. They've been wanting a civil war in America. The globalists have. They've been trying to get one. That's why they made a movie about it. And that, if these folks rise up and start doing mass murder in our cities, like not an active shooter, but mass active shooters, like there's an internal army that's risen up against us, there will be a civil war. And it will be a hot war. Because as soon as they start to roll into... See, the cities will roll over. Because the people in the cities, they don't know. I mean, they're passive. Other than the gangs. The gangs aren't, but, but the folks in the rural areas, they won't be taking that crap. They'll be loading up and shooting back. And a lot of the folks in the rural areas are crack shots. They know how to hit their target. So I think that the folks that rise up who think this is just going to be easy, America's grown soft, we're just going to go in, we're going to sneak in, they won't, we'll hide among them, and then when Trump wins, we'll rise up and just take the country over. I think they're going to be in for a big surprise. Because this country will not be as easy to take over as they think. Matter of fact, they are going to find out that they will be in the fight of their life. Of course, that would cause Trump to have to engage in martial law to protect the country. And then, of course, he would be condemned as being a dictator, a Hitler, and all this kind of stuff. You can see how the chess moves are occurring. But I firmly believe that they will lose. I do. I believe they will lose. And not without a lot of loss on our part. The blue cities will get hit very hard because they're weak. But the red areas, which is which is, about 90% of the country, will bring the heat, and they'll bring it hard. So this is where I think we could be heading. Now, I hope that's not the case, but from what I'm seeing, with all of this incursion, into our country, I cannot help but think that that's the direction we're heading. Now, ultimately, everything will go as God has determined. God, in His providence and in His sovereign will determine the final outcome of all of this. Now, I'm not perfect. I have my faults, and I confess them before the Lord on a daily basis. But if we don't see this as a spiritual warfare, which it is, then we might want to wake up and start going to the Lord in prayer, and first confessing our own sins, and then asking God to bring revival to America and the will to fight evil and to put it down. So I think that's where we're heading. I know that ship hit the bridge and all of that. I believe that was an intentional attack. And that black smoke coming out of the stack of that ship. I was in the Navy for, I lived on board warships for 3 years. That would be a bad fuel mixture or a fire in the engine room. And it doesn't matter if it's diesel, gas turbine, which are the two most common engines used on those ships. I see black smoke like that, I'm thinking, there's a fire in the engine room. Fire, away to flying squad, right? If you've been Navy, you know what that means. But it could be sabotage on the engine, and the fuel, the fuel didn't burn right, burned heavy or thin or whatever it might be, and it produced that black smoke. But the lights going out on that ship indicates that there was power plant problems on that ship. And of course, when you have that kind of issue, you go dead in the water, you lose rudder, you lose the ability to steer the ship. And once they point at the ship right before that stanchion on that bridge, there's no stopping it. You know, you can't hit the brakes on a ship. It doesn't work that way. You got to reverse the screw and reverse engines as trying to stop a ship. And a ship, it's like a train, you know. A train's going to take a long time to stop. A ship ain't going to stop like that. It's going to keep floating in the direction that it was going because of inertia. And those are big, heavy ships. They're a lot of tonnage. So that was intentional. We're going to see more of that. So just stand by. I think the next few months are going to be very, very crazy. I think we're going to see more of those type of weird accidents, right? Just like they've been hitting food plants and all this, destroying those. Now, the conventional news is not going to tell you the truth about what's going on. You got to search the alternative areas, and that's why I recommended. And we know X-22 report. The SGT report is good with that. There's a number of them out there where you can get really good information that you won't find in the mainstream news. So I would recommend those. Gateway Pundit as a news site, Citizens Free Press. If you go to the places like that, they will tell you things that nobody else is going to tell you. And I'm a big fan of the Epoch Times. So yeah, I would check on those. All right. God bless. I'll see you next time.